Hi, everybody. I'm going to just get my Instagram started, and then we'll get started on this Crushing Doubt live Q&A. Here we go. Going live. Okay, we should be good to go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Crushing Doubt's Q&A, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm excited to be back with you all. I was off last week, taking time to see if I can finish this editing. It is a lot of work, but I'm getting really, really close. We can certainly talk about that if people are curious where I am in that process. But it's great to be back here with you. I'm going to say hi to a couple of people. Rita, good to see you on Instagram. Dorisa says, hi, Dan and everyone. I'll put that up so that people can see. Good to see you, Dorisa. And Jane Smith says, hi, Dr. Dan and Dorisa and everyone. I missed you last week. Can't wait for your book. I cannot wait to get it to you. It's going to be so fun to talk about it all with you all. And, as we know, the reason we're here for this Q&A is to get all of your questions answered. Well, the book is another piece of that puzzle. I keep building out pieces of the puzzle to get people many ways to get answers. And I'm going to explain why I think that's so important in a second, but a couple of more hellos. Susan Serino is here under, I guess, her son's name, I think. Hi, Dan and everyone. This is Susan. Yes, I was right. Okay, good to see you here. And Rita, thank you for saying hi on Instagram. And she says hi to everybody, actually. And it is Layla has joined us here as well. Layla, great to see you here. Okay, we'll get started with questions in a second. Scotty Styles, good to see you here as well. So let me talk a little bit about why I do this. I had 8 years of back pain, as so many of you know, but some of the details of the story you may not know as well. And what ended up happening is when I got introduced to Dr. Sarno's books, I was really blown away. I mean, first I was skeptical. I kept Mind Over Back Pain, his original book, on my shelf for a year before I even read it, just thinking, I can't believe that a book could help me with this. I thought it was a physical issue. Well, it is a physical issue, but it's not the same kind of physical issue that I was used to at the time. It was a physical issue that was, of course, mind-body. And that's what we're here to discuss, is mind-body issues. And that is when your feelings or your thoughts go through that process in the brain, and then they get channeled into the body. The brain, we know, controls the body. I'm moving my arms because the brain controls the body. I blink because the brain controls the body. My heartbeat beats because the brain controls the body. This happens all the time. We also know it in ways where if we're crying, an emotion, we get sad or maybe sometimes really happy, and actual tears roll down our face. Or blushing, we get embarrassed and blood rushes to our face. We have so many examples of the fact that the mind controls the body. And in fact, it's almost preposterous to say it doesn't. It does everything. We can't do anything without the brain. In fact, brain dead people or people in comas, they can't do anything because the brain's not there to do it. Not in the same way. So we know all about this. What I didn't know is that it could cause back pain. And what I've found out since is it can cause anything the body can do. Any symptom the body can have or any experience the body can have, the mind can do it. So when I discovered this information, which Dr. Sarno laid out so brilliantly, I was amazed to see that pain of 8 years start to break up all of a sudden. And it was quite fast once it really clicked. Now, Sarno said you have to be certain of the diagnosis to get results. Well, that's actually where this Q&A really comes from. I took it to heart that I needed to be certain about the diagnosis. I need to be certain about everything that I was thinking. And that meant I needed to get some questions answered. Now, Sarno answered a lot of questions, but he didn't answer all of them. And I'm not saying that critically of him. There's just so many questions that any one human mind could be asking. And I had a lot of them. Here's a good example. Sarno said, oh, we all have this reservoir of rage. You just need to become aware of it, and that will take away the problem. Well, the issue I had with that is I had been in over 10 years of therapy. I was a very aware person, even of my anger. And I thought, well, how does this make sense? So I decided I would try to get some more help with this. I went to a guy named Eric Sherman. He's a great therapist who trained under Sarno. And I asked him that question among many others. And here's what he said to that question. It's not necessarily about being aware of the anger. Sometimes it's about being aware of how you feel about the anger. And I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now, that didn't answer everything about that question, but it did answer a lot. And I started to see the importance of asking questions and getting them answered. So that's why I have this here, because I'm trying to give symptom sufferers out there everything that I feel I would have needed. If I had had this resource, I have to say I would have absolutely loved it because I had so many questions. And this would have been a ready-made way to just go straight there and ask a question for somebody who knows these answers. Now, this is also why I think of myself as what I call a mind body expert who is therapy informed. Now, that's very different than a therapist who's mind body informed. My focus is mind body. I understand therapy, I know how it works, but my main focus is let's help you understand these symptoms and get rid of them. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, as you guys know, I have this, or many of you know, but some of you might be new. Sabina, I see you have joined us here, and I know you just followed me on Instagram just recently. So welcome. It's great to see you here. Please do ask your questions. I'm going to tell you about how my system works and how it can help you to get rid of all kinds of symptoms. So let's get into the columns. The columns is a name that derives from when I first got better from back pain, all those years. I started to realize, it's not just emotions that cause these issues. It's also my thinking. I totally knew that it was, because if I would get worried, the symptoms would go up. Clearly, what I was thinking about was actually having an impact. So I started to think about these things, and slowly but surely, I solved the riddle as I see it. And these 3 columns that I have come to understand solve that riddle for us. The columns derive their name from this exercise I would give to people when I first started working with other people once my pain was done, or my long-term pain was wiped out. It comes from this exercise that I used to call the mind-body map, where I would tell them, take a sheet of paper and draw 3 columns. That's where that name comes from. And the columns are these: emotions, doubt, and power. And these 3 columns all signify different ways that symptoms manifest. The emotions column is very similar to what Sarno said. What happens is you don't want to know about some unconscious emotion, and the symptom comes in as a distraction. The function of these emotions column symptoms is distraction, just like Sarno said. If the symptom's there, you're not going to be able to discover it. You're going to be focused on the symptom. But if we take away that distraction through discovering the emotion, it goes away. The one difference that I have in the emotional field from what Sarno said and did is that I have a system of how to discover those emotions. So Sarno, he gets all the credit in the world, and he saved my life, but he didn't outline how do you uncover these emotions. That's part of what I do in the emotions column. So that's one way I can get you help. Meanwhile, those symptoms I found aren't related to all symptoms. They're related to the onsets and upticks of symptoms. Let's think about what that means. The onset is the beginning. The uptick is a symptom that was always already there, but then suddenly went way up. That happens because of emotions. So we can get control of these acute onsets and upticks through understanding the emotions in the right way. All right, now let's move over to the doubt column. The doubt column is about your thinking, and the doubt column is also about those symptoms that seem to be chronic. And I underline the word seem, because nothing in the mind-body field actually is chronic. You can alter things by changing how you're thinking. And that's part of how I do this work, is to help you think. How do I think? I even help you identify, what am I thinking? So in the doubt column, that's what we're looking for. But the function of the symptom is different. It's not there for distraction. It's there to protect. It's there basically like a helicopter parent saying, no, you're in danger. You got to watch out. And it's always warning us. But we have to prove to our own minds we're not in danger. We don't need this protection. And when that happens, the symptoms start to break up. So now we've got a way to get acute symptoms, onsets and upticks down. And now we've also got a way to get those long-term, seemingly chronic symptoms to start breaking up and moving, which is great, because that'll bring our doubt down even further. Thirdly, there's the power column. The power column I didn't even discover until I was better. But what I found out is that there is a correlation between getting better in your symptoms and how you feel about yourself, your relationship with yourself. That's what the power column is for. And the function of power column symptoms is a communication. It is there to tell you something about you. So we can start to learn from our symptoms. But guess what? You cannot do that when you're stuck in doubt. There's a reason this is called crushing doubt. The very first step is always bring down the doubt. You can't think of anything else when the doubt is there. However, once it is down, you can use these columns and get rid of all symptoms. Power column symptoms tend to present as plateaus. You're getting better, and then you just kind of get stuck. So we're going to talk about all these questions through the lens of the columns. That's why I always want to introduce this again each time, not only for new people like Sabina or Susanna Margaret. Good to see you here. I haven't seen you here before, so welcome. Please do ask your questions. We're talking about mind-body symptoms and how to alleviate them. My system can help you figure out what's happening with each one and how to get rid of it. The key is always asking your questions, and you need to get your questions answered to your full satisfaction. So when I answer a question here, I want you to do two things. One, follow up if you didn't get the answer you needed enough, because if your mind continues to think the same thing goes on in your body. The other thing is, when I'm answering someone else's question, I want you to think about how it applies to you. All of these conversations apply to all of us because we're trying to understand the mind-body experience in general. That's the thing that's really going to bring down doubt. Okay. Scotty Style said, Sarno saved me. So many people have that story. Without Sarno, I would not be here, certainly not in this way. So I owe so much to him. Catherine Toomer, good to see you here on Instagram as well. All right, I'm going to jump over to some questions that we have coming in. Though Susan said, hi, Rita. We've got some highs going on. Susan says, hi, Scotty. Then Kasim, good to see you here. He says, hey, Dan and everyone here. Good to see you, Kasim. And please do put in your questions. Everybody, put in your questions as needed. There's no silly question, none at all, because whatever question you have, a question is a form of doubt. In fact, let me say something about that. Doubt, the 4 forms of doubt: fear, confusion, lack of certainty, and questions, unanswered questions. So unanswered questions, those are the kinds of doubts we actually want to have. They're the gold standard of doubt. That's where we can get our answers best and we can resolve doubt best. Fear is the top level. We can barely even think straight, but we will slowly but surely bring all that doubt down, whittle it down to questions and get them answered. Okay, let's dive in with some questions. Jane Smith, good to see you here. Okay, question. I've been having a terrible time. I'm sorry to hear that, Jane. Huge flare-ups of neuropathy. So that's like, various nerve sensations and pain and things like that. Stomach pain, even a headache I took meds for. I concluded it was from the stress of dental surgery. Getting better now. Makes sense? So that does make a lot of potential sense, Jane. And what I want to say to you is one of the things about the columns is ultimately we're going to learn to help you trust your own mind and your own assessment. So if this felt right to you, if it felt like, yeah, I've got it, that was stress, and I can see why I was stressed about that, and now you're starting to get better. Listen, if you're starting to get better, it is a sign that you do feel that you are onto something. The symptoms wouldn't have come down if you weren't onto anything. So the next step that I would take in this was it would be to look at what specifically was stressful about it. And when I say that, it sometimes makes me laugh when I ask that kind of question, because of course dental surgery would be stressful. I'm not saying what's stressful about that, because of course it would be. I'm talking about the specifics. In the emotions column, we've got to get really specific. What I like about what you did, though, is you found a way to bring doubt down. You found a way for it to make sense. There's one assumption I ask you guys to make when looking at these issues, which is you make sense and your symptoms make sense. Don't ever move off that. If doubt ropes you into thinking, maybe I don't make sense, maybe I can't figure this out, that's when doubt has you where it wants you. But if you know that you do make sense and you just don't know how yet, and you're going to explore, then you can use the columns to get there. Okay, Jane, you did have some follow-up on that, so I want to read more. Whoops. I wasn't sure if it made sense or not. I've been so confounded after such a dramatic downswing on so many fronts all at the same time. So, listen, Jane, my guess is it makes sense about part of the experience, but I know that you've been on a trajectory where doubt has really wormed its way in a lot. So I would say what this makes sense of is the emotions column event. You were having an experience that brought up symptoms way high. That makes perfect sense. Your overall symptoms being worse and the doubt being higher, that's because of doubt. Doubt has creeped its way in various ways, and we need to keep working at that. So this, by the way, it's a good answer for Jane, but it's a good answer for you all. We all have 3 columns, and these 3 columns are always active in all of us. So you want to start to think about when is which one leading the way. So these huge flare-ups, when I even hear the word flare-up, I immediately think emotions column. That's a change. It's an onset or an uptick. That's emotions column. So I think you did get the right emotions column experience. But when you say, I wasn't sure it made sense or not, I've been so confounded. Even the beginning of this sentence, Jane, and I mean this encouragingly and supportively, I wasn't sure. What does that sound like to you? That's doubt. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have doubt. We all have doubts. It's totally natural to have doubts. But in the doubt column, we do 3 things. Observe, articulate, and counter. To observe a doubt is to call the thought into question, to wonder, maybe this is a doubt. Maybe this is doubt messing with me. So when you hear yourself say, I wasn't sure, I would immediately want you to pause and say, wait, hold on. Even though I can't just make myself sure, I can at least recognize I'm having a doubt. That's what this is. Then the next step, articulate. Let's get it put into words. What is the doubt? Now, you actually kind of did that. I've been so confounded after such a dramatic downswing on so many fronts all at the same time. So, in a way, what you're articulating is there are too many variables. I don't know that I can discover this. Yes, you can. You can break it down. In fact, all you have to do is list the individual ones and we'll take them one at a time. What doubt is doing, which it's one of its frequent tools, is to get you overwhelmed. It's trying to get you to think it's too confusing. I can never figure this out. And, a doubt is really crafty and it'll get you all to try to give up. The only way that you lose, though, is if you give up against doubt. I understand there can be the temptation. It can be very convincing, but we have to have a fierce determination to never give in to doubt. So, Jane, I know you missed me last week, but I'm back. Let's get to fighting this. By the way, I do want to mention there are many ways to work on these things with me. The Q&A is, it's free. It's here most Thursdays. And I love to work with people on this, but there are also resources on my website that can help, especially if you want to interact with me more directly or get even more information from me. On the website, there's really two main things that I would point you towards, though when the book comes out, that'll be a third. One is my teaching seminar. The teaching seminar is where you can get all the information you need. If you just need all the information on mind-body experience and how to think about it, the seminars tell you everything I think you need to know. They are 8 sessions. They're 75 minutes long. They're pre-recorded. You can order them in the middle of the night. You can start them whenever you want and go straight to the website and order that. So that's how you get information. That includes information about why does one person in the mind-body field say this and another says this. I want all of these things to make sense. What usually happens in the mind-body field is everybody's making sense some of the time. I want to make sense all of the time, because that's the thing that's really going to, get you through to seeing, yes, this makes sense and I get it. The other resource that you can get on my website is the membership group. These are Zoom calls. They are not recorded. They're, live Zoom calls with me where people come on and they ask their questions and they talk about where they're working in the columns, and they ask me about what needs to happen here. It's a very supportive group, and both are actually quite cost effective, especially for what you're getting. But the groups are Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I do want to say, some of you have heard, especially if you got the newsletter, that I'm starting up a new group. And that group is called the Power Column Group. So the way my system works right now is the seminars are designed to bring down your doubt with all that information. The groups are then designed to support you in implementing the system, which, by the way, is introduced in detail in the seminar. And I can help keep bringing down doubt in those groups. And then once doubt and symptoms are down, if you really want to work on the power column, your relationship with you exclusively, I'm going to start a power column group. I don't have the details of when it is going to be or how much it'll be, but I'm going to make announcements about that. My newsletter is a great way to get that, but I'll announce it again here. If you do want to sign up for the newsletter, you can do it on my website, www.crushingdoubt.org. Okay. There also is a big reorganization happening on my website where the community is going to have a lot more resources coming up. So keep an eye out for that in the next newsletter. I'm going to send out information about that. All right. Thank you for your patience, guys, as I scroll through here. Okay. Karen Isaacs, good to see you here. First time I heard, quote, how we feel about anger. I used to hate my anger. Oh, this is the first time you heard about that. Yeah. I used to hate my anger. I was scared of being angry. It felt ugly. Now that I hear it this way, I think that will help me. Great, Karen. And it's amazing because there's so many times where I don't know which part of a conversation is going to break someone through, but that's part of why I do this, is that it's a long conversation where various parts are going to be the key thing. That really nailed it for me. That's the thing that cracked the code. And of course, if we're asking questions and answering them directly, a lot of times it can be a direct pipeline to that, where people say to me, this is the question I have. If you were able to answer this, I'd be certain. And then if I do answer it well, it usually does help. Okay, then Jane Smith said, "Yes, Karen, first time I've heard that too. How we feel about anger. That resonates for me too." It's a really important one because it's not all about anger that we don't know about. Sometimes it's we don't know how we feel about that anger. Okay, I'm going to get to a question on Instagram now. Layla said, "I'm back on the doubt cycle." All right, we got to get back at it then. Even though it makes sense for me to have a mind body issue, I can't seem to stop fearing the constant twitching. I feel like I'm back on day one, just terrified. Okay. Actually, I do want to say hi to LJP Wright. Thanks for joining us here. Please do let me know if you have questions. Um, anyone who comes in the middle, I'm happy to stop and tell you what we're talking about. I don't want you to feel lost, but we were talking about mind body issues and how to get rid of them. So, Layla, one thing I want to encourage you about is this is how doubt works. Doubt doesn't really like to go halfway. It prefers to get you fully doubting everything. If it can get you to a place where you feel like you're back at day one, then doubt is celebrating. Now, I know that sucks, but I do want to tell you, and this is for Layla, but it's for everybody. I myself have felt like I'm back at day one. I can't believe it. Doubt has knocked me all the way backwards. Guess what? It's an illusion. Doubt wants to think you are, but of course you're not back at day one. And you know why? You have way too much information to be back at day one. All that work that you did hasn't gone anywhere. The way I want you to think about this is we are moment to moment beings. This is a bad moment. And I hate that for you, but this isn't going to last. As soon as you start to knock back against doubt, you're not at square one. You've all that work you did is in there. I also want to encourage you about one other thing. When your doubt goes up and you feel like you're at square one, usually what's going on is there is actually a new emotions column event where you don't want to know about the feeling, and then doubt comes in to cover it over really quickly. So listen, this is the same symptom you were having before, and you weren't having as much doubt. So why now? That means something's going on now. So what I want to do is first push back against doubt and say, nope, we're not buying your garbage. Nope, you're a pathological liar. I'm going to push back against you. We could do doubt work. We could observe it, articulate, and counter, though observing it is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to get you to see this is just doubt. But then we can use the emotions column to see, why am I having an uptick in doubt? Remember, the emotions column is for upticks and onsets. Doubt is a symptom of its own, and it comes after those emotional things. So I want to look at this. Something's happening now. Trace it to when it began. I'll give you an example. I just had a recent uptick in some of my foot symptoms, which can be a little bit lingering these days. And but I actually know why. It is an emotions column event. A lot of times when I sit down to do the editing of a book, there it is. But it's incredibly convincing. And I don't like the symptom. And the doubt can start to go up. So I fight that doubt and I go into the emotions column. And I think, what's happening? That's what I want you to do, Layla. Let me know if that made sense. Let's do a follow-up as needed, okay? But you're going to be fine. We're going to find the answer, okay? Susan says, Dan, how do you deal with other people around you who don't know about the mind body or don't believe in it, and they add to your doubt? Okay. Love this question because I know so many of you are going to be thinking similar things, and that's really true for almost every question that gets asked here. First, I want to say, me personally, they don't inspire doubt in me anymore. I'm so certain about it, and I've spent so much time on this, and I really believe in it so much that they don't inspire doubt in me. They inspire frustration in me sometimes because I'm like, are you serious? In fact, I just had a conversation with some cousins of mine, and we were talking about a basketball player was out for an important game, and it was very clear to me that it was mind-body related. The injury that was reported made no sense. The timing made sense that he would be struggling with something, and I couldn't get them to listen. And that was frustrating in and of itself. However, Susan's asking a different question. And in many ways, this will be a more important question for all of you, which is, but what about when they're being resistant about mind-body experience, or they just don't know about it, and they actually do inspire your doubt? They make it worse. Well, one of the things I've talked about, and Susan, this will sound quite familiar for you, but this is not just for you, it's for everybody, is the idea that we need to shrink the circle of trust. When I was trying to figure out my back pain, I didn't realize this, but it turned out, in a way, I was way too trusting of everybody. I thought, you're a medical doctor. You know what you're talking about. And listen, If that's the way the world worked, it would be much better. I wish it was that way. But I found out it wasn't. I used to be this way about therapists also. I'd go to see a psychologist and be like, "You're a therapist. At worst, you'll be good." Listen, I got to tell you, in most fields, this is not the way it goes. And I'm not trying to breed negativity or distrust that isn't warranted. But I am trying to help people do what I call putting on their doubt armor. You have to be prepared in a world that really doesn't understand mind body experience, that almost nobody knows better than you. Everyone here already knows better than almost everyone else because you're here at all. You're asking these questions, you're wondering about it. You're way ahead of well over 99.999% of the entire population on the earth. Now, in a way that could be scary. Whoa, symptom sufferers who don't know what they're doing about their symptoms, they're way ahead of all the other people. It's true though. If those people get into mind body trouble, they're going to be behind you. They haven't even discovered this yet. But as you bring doubt down and as you use the columns, you get into this whole upper echelon where you're way ahead of almost anybody. And in fact, I find that when people are using the columns, they're even ahead of some of the mind body experts out there. That may be stepping on some toes to say it. I'm sorry. But what I found is the columns have better information, more full information, and that can put you way ahead of things. So one of the tricky parts, Susan, is to come to realize, and this can be a bit scary, you know more than almost everybody already. Do you know enough to feel like you can get better? No, I know. You need more questions answered. That's one of the reasons that you're here. That's one of the reasons you ask me questions. But ultimately, if you recognize this, then it could help you to consider, well, if I'm way ahead of everyone else, why am I trusting all of these people? So again, I'm not trying to sow the seeds of distrust. What I'm actually trying to get at is let's think critically. Let's just all be critical thinkers. Let's ask, does this make sense? And why does this make sense? And I want you to give yourself the respect to know you might be able to puzzle this out better than these other people who are resisting this. So that helps me bring down the doubt, to shrink that circle of trust and know, actually, I already know better. Even when I was just beginning to read Sarno, I was like, oh my God, I already know better than so many other people. And in a way that was scary to me because I was like, well, where am I going to get answers then? None of these people know. That freaked me out. But as I looked, there's actually plenty of people who know some of these answers. The mind-body field is a great comfort to me that way. I think it's a great comfort to many people. We actually know about this. Not only that, we're starting to see articles pop up in the New York Times and everywhere else that are showing people actually are starting to understand the mind does control the body a lot of the time. So this is going to get easier for a lot of us. But right now, and this is just something I recommend in general, shrink the circle of trust. Decide who's talking sense. These people who say, oh, herniated disc cause back pain. Well, what about all the scientific studies that show there's no correlation between that? How can we trust people like that? I often say, this is like trusting a 4-year-old to teach me about physics. They just don't know. And listen, I don't even mean it as like a total dismissal of these professionals. They do know a lot of really good stuff. There's medical doctors are fantastic at so many things, save tons of lives. But in these areas, they're missing what's in their own scientific journals. And we really have to, they're just slow to catch up. And they're slow to catch up because there's so much resistance. So Susan, with all these people that don't believe in it or are adding to your doubt, you're not alone in that. We're all in this battle together. And this is part of what I do. I consider this to be like a 50-year project in convincing people this is right. The mind-body experience is a major, major influence over what happens in the body. Okay, David M. Weinman, MD, thank you for joining us here. Or is it DMD? Sorry, I may have gotten the name wrong. But welcome, and please do ask your questions, okay? All right, Susan, let me know if that answered your question to your satisfaction. That's the goal here. Okay, Kasim says, how do I get through trauma triggers before going into the emotions column or other columns work to lower the symptoms? David Weinman, I see you said just starting. Thank you. Well, soak it up and just take it in and not only ask your questions here, but also feel free to come back next week. It's Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And I just want to get you answers. And so, of course, questions, you'll have to see what bubbles to the surface. Okay, back to you, Kasim. Sorry about that. How do I get through trauma triggers before going into the emotions column or other columns work to lower the symptoms? Do you just say, acknowledge that I'm in a traumatic state, somatic tracking? Okay, I see. The question got put in twice. Okay, so let me talk about this a little bit. And this is for Kasim, but it's for everybody. First of all, what is a trauma trigger? Let's talk about that. A trauma trigger or trauma activation, whatever language we use for this, it basically means that something in the present is mirroring a traumatic experience of the past. And when that happens, we basically enter an altered state. We're not in the same space anymore. We're like back there. We think that life is that way. In fact, I would say, Layla, what you were just talking about in terms of feeling you're back at day one, I think that was a trauma activation. Now it's emotions column related, and trauma activations are emotions column related, but they're also harder to work with because we get so upset by them. We get so driven backwards by them. They feel like real danger. A trauma activation does not feel safe. So let's talk about how to deal with it, as Kasim's asking. Now you say, do you just acknowledge that I'm in a traumatic state? I think that yes, that would be what I would call like observing a doubt. Now, this is an emotions column event, but you're going to have doubts about it. Trauma is a form of doubt. It's like, I doubt my own reality. I doubt that I'm safe. I doubt everything. When your trauma is activated, your doubt is through the roof. So the first thing is to bring down the doubt. So I know you say before going into emotions column or other columns work, actually trauma work is doubt column work already. You've got to bring down the doubt that you can understand this reality, that you can get to safety. And so that's the first thing. Acknowledge that trauma activation is a doubt. And then start to do what you do with every doubt. Articulate it. You've observed it now. Now articulate it. Why am I doubting that I'm safe? It might be that you're saying, oh, well, that same thing happened again. And then you remind yourself, yeah, but I'm not the same person. That happened to me when I was 4 years old. I'm now somebody who knows much more about this. I'm somebody who can say no to this. I'm somebody who doesn't have to respond to this. And you start to talk yourself through it. Now, somatic tracking is basically when you focus on parts of the body and learn what your body is experiencing in relation to an emotional event. That can help too. Meditation can help. All kinds of tools can help. But here's the bottom line. Bring down not just the panic and the anxiety, bring down the doubt, because the doubt is the thing that causes that. Now, Kasim, I want you to follow up with that. Let me know if they answered your question to your full satisfaction. That's the whole idea here, right? Okay. Thank you so much for that. Let's see. I see Susan said, thank you, Dan. Very helpful. Okay. I hope it is. Shrink that circle of doubt. Find the people you can trust and shut everybody else out. They just don't know. Okay. Catherine Toomer, good to see you here on Instagram. Hi, Dr. Dan. As I work in the power column, I seem to hold in one hand the part of me that lives and is loving and feels good. And in the other hand, that part of me that feels negatively and angry with myself and others. The part that is angry with others is usually related to me feeling anxious or unloved. It flips quickly when I am feeling better about everything. I'm trying to hold space for both while leaning into the loving, feeling good part. Being here with you and everyone always helps. All comments welcome. Immense thanks, Dan. My pleasure, Catherine. I'm glad this does help. Okay. Now let me jump back to your question. So the flow of columns work is the first thing we got to do is bring down doubt. Then we go to understand the emotions. And after that, everything flows towards power. Ultimately, you want to live in power. So, Catherine, as you describe this, I actually would describe this not so much. Well, let me see how you phrase this, because there's an important thing here. I seem to hold in one hand the part of me that lives and is loving, and the other hand, that part of me that feels negative. Okay. Think about these two hands and what they're holding. The part that feels good is holding power. The part that feels bad is holding doubt. That's what that is. So these aren't like two equal parts. Remember, doubt brings information to you that is false. Its information is wrong. Power and emotions, the emotional columns, they bring true information. The emotions column brings true information to get you past the distraction, get in touch with whatever's happening. And in the power column, it brings you true information about the broad you and what's going on with you. So what I want you to remember is that when you're feeling all that negative stuff and angry with yourself or others, you can sometimes feel angry with others in a power column sort of way where you're in your own corner. But if it's not feeling good to you, that's doubt. So you say, I'm trying to hold space for both. Guess what? I don't want you to hold space for both. I want you to nail doubt to the wall. So, yes, lean into the loving, feeling good part, but recognize the other side is doubt. All right, let's consider what that does for you. Catherine said, yes, it doesn't feel like equal parts. Absolutely. It's not. It's not even close to equal parts. The loving and lovable part feels bigger. Okay, Catherine, it's even bigger than it feels. The loving and lovable part is actually you. The other part is doubt. Okay? Okay, I see that it's not David. Sorry, your name is Stacy. Husband is David. How long does it take before we see any results? That can depend, Stacy. Sorry about calling you by David. That was only a name that I had for you, but I'm glad you corrected that. How long does it take? It really varies, but I would say this: the faster you understand it all, the faster the results happen. So that's thank you. I appreciate your understanding. So that's what I want you to focus on is simply don't focus on how long will the results take. Although I will tell you, it usually doesn't take nearly as long as people think. People can get better fast, but it is about understanding. So what I want to focus on is, are we getting you further in your understanding? And if we do get you further in your understanding, I will say this. I'll give you a general ballpark, but please don't hold me to this because it really depends on what's going on in everybody's mind. But basically, once you really feel like doubt is way down, people start getting better fast, very fast. Now, how long does that take? That can be variable. But, on average, I think if you're really engaged in the information and you're open to it, it shouldn't take more than a couple months at most. And sometimes it's even faster. My all-time record working with somebody was getting them better in one session. I actually, there was a local news story done on me where I talked, this was not even the same one, but I talked with a woman. We went out to lunch. It was a friend of a friend. And I just explained what I did. And she started thinking about it. She read a book by Sarno. Of course, when, I want people to read my book because I say certain things that I think are extra helpful. And she got better in days, just days. That's how fast it can happen. And when I discovered Sarno, it took me a while to soak in the information. But when it really started to click, I went from having 8 years of back pain to doing flips in a pool 3 days later. Now, I don't want to discourage anybody that it's not happening quickly for, because there's multiple ways this plays out. Remember, if doubt is still there, it's not going to come down. Or if you're having a power column issue, you can get stuck on a plateau. So don't get discouraged if it's not getting better in a couple of days for you. I just want you all to know it can when the right understanding clicks. And that's part of what I'm here for, is to help it click. Okay. I see Stacy said that's good news. Wow. Yes. We got lots to talk about. And if you want to find out more, you can go to my website, www.crushingdoubt.org. You also can email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. Especially, I get a lot of emails coming in, and I'm trying to mostly reserve that to people asking me, how do I get better? What's a plan here? Setting a plan. But I'd be happy to do that with you, Stacy. So please do contact me, okay? Or come back here. Keep asking questions. All right? I'm going to jump back. I missed a couple of questions. Layla says, that makes sense about the emotions coming in and then maybe that trauma activation. I don't know which you were responding to, but I think it was more of the emotions when you wrote this. I find it hard to track emotions because anxiety always keeps me in a state of stress. If I had it once a week, it might be easier to track, but it's all day from when I wake up, except when I'm moving. So, right, because that's doubt, right? Those persistent symptoms, whether they're always there or persistently there, that's doubt. Your doubt is that, I know this is not a banner day for it, but your doubt has been down. And what that means is you're on the way to getting better. I suspect this probably went up because I was away from the Q&A. I've been away from groups for a bit. And it also can just happen. But here's the other thing. There definitely was something that went on emotionally. I think this was a trauma activation. And if we find that, that's actually going to bring your doubt down because the whole thing has to make sense. Let's keep talking about it. Okay, Stacy, I see you say you will. I look forward to talking to you about it, okay? All right. Kasim said, thanks, Dan. That helps. I will also calm and talk to my inner child who often needs to hear he is safe and loved. Yes. And you know what, Kazim? I'm going to add something else to it. When we do really good power column work, you're actually going to know you're safer. You're going to be even safer with you. Danger can come from outside and it can come from inside. But when it comes from inside, that's when we have a lot more sense of danger, and that's changing for you. So you're going to not only be able to tell yourself you're safe, you're actually going to believe it. You actually are going to be safe. And that's what power column work is for. So I really look forward to that. All right, let me jump back to some questions coming in from YouTube. Rhiannon, good to see you here. I know you're up late in England. Hi, Dan. It's Rhiannon. As you know, I'm starting to explore the concept of power and what this means for me. Could you talk a bit more about what power means and maybe give some examples of what power means for different people? This will just help me to explore in more detail what it means for me. All right, let me get back to first the concept of what power means. Power means having a good relationship with yourself. When you're in power, things just feel good. And when you're not in power, they do not feel good. It's almost that simple in a way in terms of evaluating what's happening. But power is also about evaluating why. Why don't I feel good? When you feel good about you and you feel in flow, you tend to feel good about you. You tend to feel good in your interactions with other people and even with your symptoms. These are three ways that we need to get into power anyway. You can feel in power sometimes and not feel great about everything. But power is about feeling good with the self. Another way of defining it is at peace. I know what things mean. I know what I should be doing. I'm living in alignment with myself. That's another way of defining it. So there's all these different ways of defining it. But really, when it comes down to it, it's about peace and alignment and just feeling good with you. That's what power is. And you then asked, can I give some examples of what power means for different people? Sure. Tons of things. We are moment to moment beings. So our power can go up and down in all kinds of different moments. And we have a chance to make adjustments to fix it. So, when I was having back pain and had no idea what was going on or how I was going to get better, my power was really low. But as I sit here talking to all of you and I feel like I know exactly why that happened, I know exactly what to do about it. It cannot control me anymore. I'm not in danger. I think you can hear that's all power. But here's other forms of power. If you have been in an abusive relationship and you learn, you know what, I can set a boundary. I don't have to do this. I don't have to think about this person. That's another way of becoming powerful. Have you ever been in a situation where you're texting somebody and you're waiting to hear back and you're like, oh my God, I hope they're not mad. Here's a powerful move. I'm going to forget about them for now. I don't want to spend my time like this. If they are a worthwhile friend or person in my life, they're not going to be all that mad at me and we'll be able to work it out. So that's a way of returning to power. Feeling that this is one I know you'll relate to, Rhiannon, but feeling that you're doing things in life that you want to be doing, that's powerful. Feeling that you're stuck doing things you don't want to be doing, that's not powerful. Feeling that somebody doesn't respect you, that's not powerful. Feeling that it doesn't even matter whether they respect you because you respect you, that's power. These are all examples, but let's keep talking about it. Okay. And Rhiannon and everybody else out there, please do let me know if you have follow-ups about that. Jane then said, thanks, Dr. Dan. I feel I am failing at the emotions column. We'll correct that. You're not failing at anything. When I can't shift things in the moment. I was TMS unwell for days post-surgery. So TMS is what Sarno called tension myositis syndrome. It's an equivalent of mind-body issues. And then she said, am I doing it wrong / badly? Don't some things take time to resolve? So here's the interesting thing. You feel that you're failing at the emotions column. First of all, you're not failing at anything. You're a human being, and your columns just describe what's happening. So you can't fail. There's just, do I understand what's happening? If there is something that's going on, though, it's not even in the emotions column. It's simply just doubt. Am I doing it wrong or badly? That's doubt. Not only that, it's doubt that is attacking your power. It's just like I was saying to Rhiannon about what is powerful. Am I doing it wrong or badly? Listen, and I don't mean this critically, Jane, this is all supportive, but if you want to ask a question that's driving towards getting an answer, then you can ask a question like this. I feel like I might be missing something, but I want to discover what it is. Can you tell me what I'm missing? And if you were kind of in that calm state of, I'm just trying to get an answer to a question, I don't think badly of me, I don't think that I'm doing it wrong, I'm not panicked. That's a question. That is the form of doubt that is questions, the gold standard of doubt. Again, I do not mean this critically, Jane. This happens for many, many people, but I hear fear and confusion. These are higher levels of doubt that are floating around. Oh my God, I'm doing it wrong. I'm never going to get this right. I'm never going to figure this out. Da, 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 da. Right? That's a self-attack. Doubt is a self-attack. And so when you say, don't some things take time to resolve, that's true, but they especially take time to resolve if doubt is there. So I do hope that's helpful. Again, I'm just showing you, wow, doubt's raging. It's doing everything it can, but I'll tell you, it's in deep trouble because it's not going to get past me. I'm going to see it every time. This is doubt. We're observing it, and I hope that helps. So I want you to, when doubt's there, work on doubt first, Jane. You don't even need to worry about the emotions column. It is Layla said, wow, I self-attack all the time. Okay, light bulb went off. Okay, this is part of what these things are for, is light bulbs going off. I wanted to make more and more sense for you. Thanks for sharing that, Layla. And Jane, let's talk about whether that helped. We can talk about it today. We have a little bit of time left. We also can talk about it next week. Okay, Karen Isaac says, I go from not being able to, oh, hold on, let me pull it up here. There we go. I go from not being able to lift my left arm to being able. When I wake up with it, I tell it, get the F out of here. Sometimes I get scared because my cholesterol went up and I get scared it's heart related. My angst has gone up in the last couple of weeks. My business is slowed. Money represents safety. I remind myself I'm in business 37 years and have gone through 5 rough years. I'm thrown off easily lately, and I see what she means. She says I'm at 5 tough years out of 37. Okay, so first of all, you're doing some really good self-talk, Karen. I know it's not easy, but I do like to hear you engaged in the self-talk. What I want to have you focus on is, all right, why is this going up now? Now, you could easily say, well, it's because my business is slowed, right? But if you think about it, what's really happening is that when your business slowed, I would say it was like a trauma activation. You started to think, well, I can only depend on me, and this is going to be trouble. And you started going down the road. I don't blame you for that at all. But what I want you to see is it's not even really usually about what happened outside of us, except in the really extreme circumstances. Usually it's about what it meant inside of us and what we started to say to ourselves. And the same thing happened with the cholesterol. You went to the doctor, you had never had high cholesterol before. And when that happened, I think you thought, oh my God, there's something wrong, right? And the trauma activation went up. Remember, trauma activation is a form of doubt. There's only one thing happening here, Karen, and that's good news. Doubt is up, just temporarily. And we are going to hammer the crap out of it. So let's keep working at it. But hopefully it will help you to know that's the only thing that's happening here. None of these worries are actually true. They're just doubt. There's nothing to worry about. Even with your cholesterol up, there are things to be done about it. It's not going to do anything in the long run. Even with this arm symptom, that's going to go away because we can understand it. There's always things we can do. You are not stuck, never stuck. Let me know if that helps, Karen. By the way, if I ever miss a question, please do let me know. I really hate the idea that I could miss questions because that feels like a dismissal of people. And I think that's problematic. I don't want anybody to feel dismissed here. The whole point is for us to feel good about us. Okay, speaking of which, Catherine, I see you said, thank you. I like that. I will do that. That's great. So, we're really getting after doubt. That's the main thing here. Okay. Okay, I see we already responded to that. And Teresa says, thank you, Dan. So we're going to wrap up for today, guys. But this is, every time I do this, every single time, it is a powerful reminder of just how important these questions are and how important it is that somebody can answer them to your satisfaction. It doesn't matter what I think. I mean, what I think can be helpful. But if I think it and you don't, it doesn't do much. We got to change your minds. And so these questions are so important. Keep them coming. I'll keep the answers coming. Okay, Jane says, thanks, Dr. D. I'll have to mull this over as I do feel quite confounded. Doubtful. There's doubt. Perhaps it wasn't the dental surgery, but not seeing you or other stressors. Very good to see you today, though. Listen, I actually think you were onto something about the dental surgery. But remember, that was the emotions column part. That was the uptick. What's this broader doubt stuff? That's doubt. I hope I was clear about that, Jane. I'm not saying you're wrong about the dental surgery. I think you were onto something because you got results. So stick with that as the emotions column thing that caused it. But remember, doubt is the overarching feature that comes in and takes up the majority of time. Susanna Margaret says, thank you for giving us your time. I appreciate all you do. It is my pleasure, Susanna, and I look forward to connecting with you further as needed. Stacy says, appreciate your help. So great to see some new names here as well as returning people to ask all their questions. This is a great community. And so I do want to say one last thing. I'll say again, you can get a lot of information on my website, www.crushingdoubt.org. You can get my seminars there. They give you all the information that you need to build on. And then you can come to my groups and talk with me about it. They're 3 times a week. You can come once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, but it's there. It's the support is there. And then you can go to the power column group, which I'm going to start once your doubt's down and you want to work on power. I keep building out resources. I'll have the book for you soon. There's more and more resources. And I do this because this is all the stuff I wish that I had had. And I also have discovered some things that are very important to add to the equation. So all of that is a big help. In the meantime, I highly encourage anybody who's not signed up for my newsletter to do it, because that's where I communicate a lot of stuff, including what's going to happen on my website as we build this new community. One of the things that's going to happen for community members, this is going to be group members, but other people can actually join at a community level membership where they can get access to questions that are being asked. And there'll be written answers from me. So it'll be like almost a database of questions and answers that you can look back on. But by the way, these Q&As are that too. You can go back and watch them. And tons of questions are being asked and answered that you guys will relate to. In the meantime, I really appreciate you all. It's a great community. I'm honored by your questions. I'm honored that you feel comfortable that I can get you answers. And we will keep this up. So I look forward to seeing you all, or many of you, as many as 1 out of 10, next Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Let's keep up the good work, guys. The only thing you need is answers. That's going to change what goes on here, and that's going to change what goes on here. Okay, Rita, thanks for the flowers. Good to see you all, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Okay, take